Both sides will basically not embrace the other side's position, but live with it. And that will create opportunities to move forward on a variety of fronts. Economic, even potentially security. Both Ma and Hu Jintao have talked about a peace accord, not soon, but that kind of thing. But as others have said, including Sui Zhang just now, for this to really be taken full advantage of, the PRC needs to adopt a very proactive and creative approach. It has to demonstrate that, in fact, Ma's approach pays off for Taiwan. Otherwise, there isn't going to be the domestic political support in Taiwan that's necessary for continuing to move ahead. They can't adopt a watch what he does and listen to his words kind of posture that they did with Chun in 2000. I think Beijing can do that in light of the large victory that the KMT has achieved, both particularly yesterday, but also in the LY election, and the defeat of the two referenda, which has been a point of such neuralgia for Beijing. I would argue that the first chance they will have to demonstrate this goodwill, if you will, toward Taiwan, it comes in April, when the World Health Assembly meets, and when Taiwan will no doubt once again apply for observer status. In my judgment, and I've had this argument with a lot of friends in Beijing, it does not involve sovereignty questions. And it is possible under the WHA charter to admit Taiwan as an observer, and I think they ought to do that and get out of the way. There are various military steps that need to be taken, that probably in the context of negotiating in the future, but I think that it would be useful even in the short run to try and take some steps to make clear that they are willing to move in that direction. With NGOs and international conferences that are not official, there's been an insistence recently by Beijing for the Taiwan delegations to call themselves Taiwan China. They need to knock that off, and I hope they will do that. I don't think they really have a sense of the reaction to that, and they need to take it into account if they really are going to try to win hearts and minds. To pick up a point that Nat Balaki made, I had argued, and I will continue to argue, that though there is not the provision in the charters that there is in the World Health Assembly, that a way ought to be found for Taiwan to participate in the activities of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Won't be with a vote. It's going to have to be created. It doesn't exist. But I think there is a practical reason, as well as a symbolic reason, short of sovereignty, to facilitate that. And I hope that people in Beijing will consider that. You know, basically, if they don't move on these kinds of issues now, in these circumstances, when are they going to move? There was, in fact, a statement by the Taiwan Affairs Office yesterday, but it was a fairly cautious one, and said, you know, we see the people of Taiwan had once again rejected Taiwan independence, blah, 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 the referendum. But at the end, as I recall it, and I don't have the text in front of me, it had something like, let us work together. So I hope that it is the spirit of that last short sentence, rather than sort of the formulaic part of the first part of the sentence of the statement, that will obtain. I also hope, by the way, that the PRC does not either misinterpret or overinterpret the defeat of the referendum. That is to say, I think the people of Taiwan have said, look, we don't need to buy this trouble for ourselves right now by pushing this issue, which obviously has caused tremendous problems with the United States, tension with the PRC and so on. But that doesn't mean that the people of Taiwan don't think they should be represented in the international community. Getting in the UN, in my view, is not on. It's not going to happen. But there are a lot of other ways that I think the international space ought to be addressed, and I hope that Beijing doesn't underestimate that feeling. Finally, as regards the United States, I think the United States needs to be willing to accept and cooperate with cross-strait improvement. There are going to be some people in the United States who are going to say, you know, I know we're not talking about unification, but any significant improvement in cross-strait relations is fundamentally against U.S. strategic national interests. I'd have to say that the President's statement, which Jonathan Pollock read from earlier, suggest that is not going to be the U.S. government position. The U.S. government position will be to be supportive, and I'm not surprised at that, but it may take some effort to push back against those who would be naysayers in this regard. But I think that there has to be, as was suggested earlier, responsiveness on this side to American concerns, which is the feeling that there was not in the last few years, that every time the U.S. expressed a concern, it was ignored. But there also needs to be acceptance on the U.S. side of the interests and concerns from Taiwan. So I think there needs to be mutuality in the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, and I think there can be. There are going to be some tough issues coming up. Arms sales. F-16s may be early on the agenda, and that's a very difficult issue and could work against improvement of cross-strait relations. We'll just have to see how that goes. As somebody said before, FTA. I mean, there's been a constant theme on FTA, and that's not easy because so far we haven't got the economic terms. Restoring trust is obviously the most fundamental and important aspect of what needs to be done. I'm quite confident, in fact, it can be. One point that was addressed earlier, I guess I have to disagree a bit with at least the way it came out from my friend Chris Nelson. I don't think that the United States sought to influence the election or favor one candidate or the other, and I don't think he really disagrees with that. A position I took a long time ago was that if Taiwan takes positions that force the U.S. to articulate opposition because our national interests are affected, and if that position by the United States accords more with the position of one of the candidates than the other, so be it. We're not going to stand down from expressing our views about things which could be of fundamental interest to the United States. Things such as maybe ending up in a war with the People's Republic of China. So it may have had an effect on the election, but I am quite convinced that the U.S. government was not trying to favor one candidate or the other. Finally, let me say, I think that, as was suggested, I think it was Jonathan again, there is an opportunity here for improvement along all three legs of the triangular relationship and for some mutual reinforcement of that process. That I don't think it's competitive to improve relations with the PRC and with Taiwan for the United States, or for Taiwan to improve relations with the United States or the PRC, and likewise from the PRC side. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's not going to be easy. But I think the opportunities are there, and I think this is a very welcome and positive development. Thank you very much.